What's going on, everyone? Welcome into another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. It's Brian Hines, back as always with Alex Barth in Game 3, the preseason finale in the books. We are soon on to Week 1, but we're going to recap what went down in MetLife Stadium. Good old-fashioned butt kicking, 42-10, backups beat backups. Patriots lost, and then we are already starting with roster cuts. Mike Vrabel announced 14 guys who were released today ahead of Tuesday's cutdown day, so we'll jump in to who was already released and kind of preview. Most of the show will be about looking ahead to roster cuts and some guys on the bubble and their standings going forward. But we will touch on this game a little bit, Barth, and I know it was the Ben Wooldridge show, no Drake May, no even Josh Dobbs. It was a lot of backups, a couple starters sprinkled in. You also saw Jared Wilson, Ben Brown on the offensive line. Defense, Jabril Peppers played a little bit to get some reps with Craig Woodson, as Mike Vrabel explained, but it was the backups for most of the night. So when you look at the score, it's 42-10. Are you in the camp where, all right, like it was backups, whatever, it doesn't matter, or the backups got blown out by the Giants backups and maybe the depth on this football team is a concern? How do you kind of walk away from that game in one of those camps, or maybe neither of those camps? But where are you after that score and what happened?
It's a little bit of both, and I'm not the first person to have this take, certainly, and I won't be the last. I think what last night tells you is the depth is a concern across the board. We've highlighted at certain positions. It would probably be quicker to list the positions I do feel okay about their depth, which would be running back, receiver, depth, not top of the depth chart, depth. Running back, receiver, edge. That might be it, honestly.
Corner, if they're healthy.
I mean, that's not depth. If they're healthy, is the starters, right? So that's kind of to my point is when we're optimistic about this team, and I'm at 9-10 wins, that's where I've been. I think the talent among the starters has notably improved. I think the starting, you want to call it the starting 22 players, 11 on offense, 11 on defense. I know it doesn't exactly work that way, but just for the thought experiment, right? I think the starting 22 players this year are much better than they were last year. I don't know if the players behind them are any better. They're different. Some of them are different, but I don't know if they're any better. And there's some spots where it really screams at you. On the offensive line is certainly a big one. Linebacker, I think you saw last night how much bigger that one might be. Safety, if they move on from Kyle Duggar. Marcus Epps had a rough night last night. So that's probably more of a roster cuts next 10 days take than it is a game take, but I think they play into each other. I don't think it's a coincidence that after the game last night, and this to me should be the big story out of that game. After the game, Mike Vrabel gets asked, a very standard question to ask a coach after the final preseason game, right? You're wrapping up the preseason, you're wrapping up camp. Okay, coach, how do you feel about your roster, right? You've seen them now for a couple months. How do you feel? Mike Vrabel goes directly to, well, it's going to be a busy 10 days. We can make trades. We can make waiver claims. Like there's
I pulled up the transcript. Literally his first sentence
if you have
is, again, we're going to continually try to strengthen the roster every way we can. There's a couple options, right? You can try to trade for players. You can try to claim some players next week. Again, we're always going to be trying to strengthen the roster. That's what we'll try to do here over the course of the next 10 days.
Mike, how do you feel about your roster? Well, we can keep adding to it. I don't think this is going to be your typical roster cut period. I think they're going to be very busy over the next 10 days. It's not great when you're picking up a significant chunk of your roster off waivers. We saw how that went last year. Now, the difference is I don't think those players are going to have to start this year. Was Demontre Jacobs starting right tackle week 2 last year? I know it was quick. I don't remember exactly how quick it was, but it was quick.
So I think he was week 3 because Vidarian Lowe get hurt at the end of the week 2 game, and then they had to go to Jacobs, I think, in week 3. I think that's how it played out.
No, because they went to, I think Jacobs got hurt. I think he was starting and then got hurt. No, it was week 4. Okay.
Week 4.
So
it was
he played in week 3.
Week 3 was when it was like the short week, and they had to start Caden Wallace at left tackle against the
Zach
Jets.
Thomas. They went to Zach Thomas before they went to Demontre Jacobs, another waiver claim, and he got hurt. So I don't think guys are going to be starting that immediately. They shouldn't be. But to go back to last night, if you listen to the pregame interview with Zolak and Vrabel on 98.5 The Sports Hub in the pregame show, Zolak asked him, so, you've been down this road before. How many roster spots are open? How many spots are up for grabs now? Was it 3, 4? And Vrabel's like, no, it's much more than that. So you tell me last night, it felt like just about every guy that was on the bubble disappointed. So if you had more than 4 spots open, and none of the guys competing for them showed you anything. Like the few guys that were on the bubble last night that I think played well are guys that were on the bubble because they were nice stories, but weren't going to make the team because it's those few positions where there's depth. Like Jeremiah Webb had a great night last night, and he deserves credit. And I think he locked himself onto the practice squad for sure. And he's going to have a job. He's going to collect an NFL paycheck, and that's not nothing. And congratulations to him. He's not going to be on the 53, right? And again, on the offensive line, not good. Corner, not good. Linebacker, not good. Interior defensive line, I don't know that anybody showed up there. Like, that's where you were looking for guys to win jobs. I think they're probably going external at some places now.
Yeah. And like on the offensive line, City So was in there in that mix. Do they keep 9 or 10 offensive linemen? He was one of the 14 guys released today. So I'm with you. Like, I think they could cut this thing down to maybe 50, 51. Like when I go through my
I think
roster,
it might be less than that.
Yeah, even less than that. Like when I go through my roster projection, I'm usually high 40s, low 50s. We went through all those bubble players before the final preseason game, and you told me what I could keep 9, and I think I kept like 6 or 7. So you'll have spots there, and even that was keeping guys like JaMychal Hasty and Jack Westover, and you say, okay, like you could probably get these guys to the practice squad if you want to go claim other players. Like, do you want to go claim a traditional fullback that maybe gets cut somewhere else? So I would definitely with you that they could cut this thing down a lot lower than 53, make some claims, and then kind of work around a few things moving forward. But some of these guys that were on the bubble, we'll talk about them, and we can note the guys who were released as well. Ben Woldridge, who started the whole game, running back Shane Watts, Micah Bernard, wide receiver Phil Lutz, who was just signed this week, with all the wide receiver injuries, tight ends, Cole Fotheringham, Jaheim Bell, last year's 7th-round pick, and then City So, as I said, Tyrese Robinson on the O-line, Kyle Pecco and Philip Bleedy, defensive lineman, RJ Moten at linebacker, and then corners Jordan Polk and Isaiah Bolden, who's been around a few years. So starting the cuts already, 14 down. So the guys that are still here, I think the O-line is a big focus, right? Are they going to keep 8, 9, 10 guys? It's not going to be City So, who didn't play great in the game last night. So maybe that's just why they cut bait. Barth, I didn't think Cole Strange played all that great at center. A couple high snaps, got called for a hold. Looked like he was getting pushed back a couple times. So we saw Jared Wilson and Ben Brown. We know those two guys are going to be on this roster, but where do you think the bubble is right now on the offensive line? And that definitely feels like a spot where there could be an external waiver claim.
Sorry, you cut out. What position was that?
O-line.
O-line? Yeah, at least one. At least one. Because I still think they need a 4th tackle after Campbell, Moses, and Bryant. I don't feel great about Darren Lowe.
I think Lowe's going to make it. And I don't
feel
know
great about that.
Yeah, I don't know if you could upgrade Lowe on waivers, right?
So maybe not on waivers.
Like, is there a trade maybe?
Right.
One of these receivers?
A 6th for somebody and a 7th. That's how they got for Darian Lowe.
Yeah.
2 years ago was the week before the season, and they needed tackle depth, and I think they tried a 6th-round pick for Darian Lowe. So external addition can be trades too. Like, yeah, you're probably not going to get a better tackle than Lowe on waivers. Maybe somebody will give you a developmental tackle for like a 6th or 7th-round pick. So they could use a tackle and that interior guy, especially if they're worried about Garrett Bradbury, who has not played well. I think the fact that he was not in uniform last night, that tells you that's your week 1 center. I don't think that's changing. Now, maybe if he struggles, I'm not saying that the door is closed on that happening at some point in season, but if they're worried about that potentially happening, now you need another interior guy. If you don't feel great about Cole Strange, yeah, they're going to be one. I think it was 3 linemen last year, right? That they ultimately claimed off waivers.
When they traded for Lowe 2 years ago, they did a couple. Remember, it was Lowe.
Or maybe it was 2 years ago.
It was Tyrone Wheatley. They traded Pierre Strong for, and then I feel like there was another one. But I feel like last year it was Jacobs and they got like a linebacker, another defensive lineman. Maybe, and was it Zach Thomas? Was that when they got Zach Thomas?
Yeah, hang on. I'm trying to find it here.
Yeah, I think it was Trey Jacobs and Zach Thomas.
Wow, it's not even like on the transaction wire. That thing was so off the off the grid. Hang on, let me see if I can find it. No, I don't want this year's transactions. Keep talking. I'm going to try to find it because I'm curious now.
Yeah, I want to say it was Trey Jacobs, Zach Thomas, and then they got a couple defensive players in there as well. But definitely, like, again, you assume Jared Wilson's locked on, Garrett Bradbury, Mike Onwenu, Ben Brown looks like the fourth guy, although they still need to find the two starting pieces at left guard and center. But those four are on. But if you want another interior option, like not overly confident with how Cole Strange has looked this summer, and then City So is gone. Tyrese Robinson is gone now. Layden Robinson's just been out of the mix the whole time. So, like, if you want another body there, it feels like that is going to have to come from either Cole Strange or a waiver claim. So we'll see. But yeah, I do think last year was Trey Jacobs and Zach Thomas. I don't know if you found it yet.
This moves really off the grid. So the transaction wire has them waiving Zach Thomas. It does not have them adding Zach Thomas. Does it have Jacobs?
Couldn't have been that off the grid because like people were so excited last. Oh wait, it wasn't the who was the Packers tackle who was huge? Caleb Jones?
Well, no, they just signed him into the practice squad. I don't think he was ever on the active roster.
Yeah. Zach Thomas.
This is wild that this is just not listed anywhere. Let me try the football database. They're pretty sicko about this stuff.
Zach Thomas.
I think it's under Zachary. Yeah. No. Okay, here it is. So they acquired on August 28th. They acquired Curtis Jacobs off waivers, who was a linebacker. DeMontre Jacobs, Eric Johnson, Zach Thomas. So they claimed 4 players on waivers. 2 of them were linemen.
Could see that happening again.
And then did they just sign anybody else in free agency? And then they signed Liam Fornadell. So that's who the third lineman was.
Yeah, Liam Fornadell, UFL legend right there. He spent most of the year on the practice squad, I think. So.
Oh, sorry. They signed him to the practice squad. So it was just 2. The year before it was.
That was Lowe, Tyrone Wheatley, which were trades. And then I feel like they got another guy too in that mix, but.
They added, where is it? Not Matt Corral, but that was the Matt Corral year.
What a time that was.
I know. Where's Cut Down Day here? This is great radio. Let me see. Wheatley. Let me just search the name.
Vidarian Lowe.
Acquired Tyrone Wheatley via trade. Acquired Vidarian Lowe via trade. And then that might have been it.
All right.
So, all right. Well, clearly none of those moves have worked. So we'll try again. But
we're back for the third year talking about
I can't believe
waiver claims they can get on the offensive line. At least, as we said at the front of this amazing, awesome segment, like these guys aren't coming in to start. Hopefully, right? Because you have Will Campbell, you have Morgan Moses, and Marcus Bryant, and maybe Vidarian Lowe behind them. Like these guys shouldn't have to start along the interior or at tackles, but we are kind of doing this dance again where they need more bodies up front, which is it's so disappointing with the amount of guards they've drafted over the last couple of years. But one name that's kind of we haven't really mentioned here in this mix, like Caden Wallace, last year's 3rd round pick. Is he on? Like, I'd be encouraged to still work with him.
Didn't look like it last night.
Yeah, I know he wasn't great last night, but I don't know. Do you think he's still in this mix, or did last night kind of seal his fate?
I mean, if they can't claim anybody, then maybe. But I think they're going to go out and look externally. He didn't seem like somebody. They weren't using him like somebody they were testing for a roster spot.
Yeah, he played a lot deep into last night's game. So we'll see with Caden Wallace in that whole offensive line. I'd probably, out of all the guys on the roster right now, I'd probably want to keep trying to develop Caden Wallace there, last year's 3rd round pick, but we'll see what happens. O-line, big spot there, but a couple other positions and guys on the roster bubble I want to get to, but very quickly before we do that, I want to hear from our friends over at Prize Picks who are wondering if you guys know ball, because the NFL season is right around the corner. The next Patriots game is week 1. The Las Vegas Raiders coming to town, and the best way to spice up the action is over on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Just pick more or less on player stats like receptions, receiving yards, passing touchdowns, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, anything for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today, and even take advantage of their weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Flex Friday tonight. There's tons of preseason action outside of the Patriots. You can put those guys in your lineup. Or back to baseball. You guys know I've been rolling with Roman Anthony. Huge night last night in the Bronx. Big home run against the Yankees. So more than half a hit in my lineup. Or if you think he's going to take advantage of that short porch, yet again, more than half a home run with Roman Anthony. Maybe pair that with some football, some preseason action there, and create a winning lineup. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup, all over on Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, back to the roster bubble here, Barth. I think the other big spot on offense, and then we'll jump over to the defense, is, well, I don't even know if you want to call it wide receiver 7, because it just feels like, is Javon Baker going to make the team? And at this point, he's probably a special teamer, right? Like, he's going to make this team as a gunner. He had to play last night, pushes the blocker into the returner, causes the fumble. Have we seen enough from Javon Baker to make this roster as a special teamer, do you think?
I mean, I think you have, but he has not been great as a wide receiver. And can you get him to the practice squad? Now, there's probably a handful of guys, to your point about, you go through the roster, you don't necessarily see 53 clear players. There's a handful of guys you can say, hey, you can get them in the practice squad and then call them up. Eventually, you're just going to put a couple of those guys on the roster because you have to have 53 players, even with external additions. So the way I posed it, we were talking about this earlier, and I asked this to Taylor. Obviously, Brandon Schooler is the best gunner on the team, but you usually have 2 out there. Is Javon Baker the second best gunner on the team? If he is, he has a strong case to make it. That was a great play he made last night, pushing the jammer into the returner. That's not an easy play to make. That's something I know this coaching staff preaches. Jeremy Springer's talked about it in the past. Generally more of a play that's made at the college level, because usually in the NFL, those blockers are more aware of where they are and simply don't put themselves in that position. You see it in the preseason, because that's when guys are learning about that. But you get the opportunity. It's not an easy play to make, and he made it. So I'll give him credit for that. But he did not look good as a wide receiver last night. So they may look at it and say, we can't keep 7 receivers. Like, it's too many. We need spots elsewhere. Keep them on the practice squad to start, and then you add them later. The other interesting thing about this whole roster conversation, just to kind of pivot away from Baker for a second, like when you project a roster, right, there's really 2 initial rosters. There's the initial roster Tuesday at 4 p.m., and then there's the week 1 roster. Yeah. And it feels like those 2 might be kind of different for the Patriots this year. Some years, even good teams, you might have minor changes, right? Guy goes on IR or whatever. We see teams do that from time to time, but it's 1, maybe 2 players. We could be talking about, what, 5, 6, 7 players here, do you think, that changed between Tuesday at 4 p.m. and call it the first practice of game week? That'll be 8 days later on that Wednesday.
I can see it.
Right? So Javon Baker, to me, I could see him on the week 1 roster. I don't know that he's on or go the other way around. Maybe they keep him on the initial roster and let everything settle. And then, all right, we can bring you up from the practice squad. Everybody's made their claims. We're not worried about anybody claiming you. We want to go get this guy that was cut by whoever. So we're going to sign him. We're going to claim him off waivers, and we're going to put you on the practice squad. We'll bring you back later. So he's done enough to earn a role. I don't know that role is one that locks him into a roster spot.
Yeah. And with all this movement, like, there could be another gunner on another team who they view better than Baker in that role, right? And then it's, okay, he's not even one of our top 2 gunners, and now he's going to be wide receiver 7 or 8, whatever. Like, is that worth a roster spot? So With the current roster right now, I'd be tempted to just keep him as a gunner and see if anything happens down the line at wide receiver, not like holding out hope for that. But when you do start about talking about those external additions that we again think there's going to be a good amount of, it gets a little dicey for Javon Baker. But elsewhere in that receiver room, I'm with you with Jeremiah Webb and John Giles. I think those two guys have made a great case for the practice squad. You know, Vrabel's been complimentary of them this year. Where do you think the whole Kendrick Bourne situation settles? Is this trending towards IR? We did see kind of a flurry of trades with these depth wide receivers last week. You know, Vele in Denver gets like a 4th and a 6th going to New Orleans. Sky Moore gets moved, late round picks. Like, do you think this is trade? Maybe you get a tackle and a swap somewhere, like trade or IR for Kendrick Bourne? Where do you think that situation ends?
I mean, it'd be great. The fact he's hurt makes me wonder where his trade value's at. And you can always trade him later, right? So to me, if there's a wide receiver that it makes sense to trade, it's Baker.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, even though he has not had a good preseason at that position, I wonder if he has more value because he's younger and he has that special teams ability. So I think, unless there's something about Kyle Williams where it's more significant than, well, I can't even say more significant than it's been reported. Nothing's been reported. The Rats didn't get that one. But you have those two spots. You might as well use them on Tavai and Bourne. I don't know who else is going to get one. The Jordan Schultz report, which Mike Vrabel did not confirm. So take this with a grain of salt, obviously, but you're not going to use it on Polk if you know he's out for the year with the shoulder surgery. Nobody else is really hurt, right? Am I missing somebody who you could maybe give that to? Anthony Jennings, I guess.
Jennings, I mean, we expect Gonzalez to be back. Mondre has been in the red non-contact, so he should be ready for week 1.
Yeah.
It's Kyle Williams or kind of Kendrick Bourne in addition to Johnny Tavai there,
right?
Depending on the severity.
It's an extra spot. It's an extra spot. If you can keep the extra, if you can. You're not just going to throw that away. You don't get it back, right? So
yeah,
if somebody wants to get dumb and offer you something for Kendrick Bourne, I mean, by all means, but I think with him being hurt, he didn't have a ton of trade value to begin with. Him being hurt probably tanks it to the point where I don't know that you're actually going to get anything. If it's Kendrick Bourne in a 7th for another 7th, then you're just in theory moving up in the 7th round. I'd wait at that point and just throw him on IR, and then maybe he comes back and plays well, and then you trade him at the deadline or something.
Yeah. The other kind of layer on top of that is like his contract. You look at a lot of the guys who have moved over the last week, right? Like it's guys on rookie deals. Whatever team gets him, I think they're going to have to pay him, a little over $6 million. So that's going to be factored in to any potential trade there. But anyone else just on the offensive side, kind of that bubble that we didn't get to that you want to signal out or are watching to kind of make the team or get pushed off? Anyone we didn't get to?
I think that's pretty much it.
All right, let's jump over to defense. And we'll start back with Kyle Duggar because seemed like that was his best preseason game last night against the Giants. He had the interception, which kind of just right place, right time on a miscommunication from Jameis Winston. Full Jameis Winston experience in a short amount of time in the preseason game. Comes in, launches a touchdown, and then sails a pass for an interception. But in addition to that, Duggar seemed to be in the right area on a couple downfield incompletions. What that is, when they're changing the scheme, they talk about the mental side, the fact that he's in the right places, forcing incompletions, that was a good sign. And then couple, coming downhill, Vrabel, mentioned his triggering downhill, couple tackles around the line of scrimmage. So maybe it was starting to click a little bit for Kyle Duggar there. He didn't play the entire fourth quarter like he did in Minnesota. So where are you with Kyle Duggar's standing and his future here? It's been such a big topic with the cap hit, but now that it maybe seems like he's trending in a little bit of a positive direction, and Vrabel again was complimentary last night, do you think he's now on the roster instead of on the outside looking in?
Is it wrong of me, Brian, to be super reactionary to what Vrabel says in his post-game press conferences? Because I feel like I have been all summer. He was very complimentary of Kyle Duggar last night. Made it sound like Duggar's kind of played the game. He's not in an ideal spot, but he's played the game with the coaching staff. I think that holds weight. I had him on the week 1 roster projection. I had him off last week. I think I'm putting him back on this week. I think ideally if they could trade him, they would. I just don't think they're going to find a trade partner. And at that point, if he's not going to be a problem, and the coaching staff feels like he's taking the whole approach, you might as well keep him. You actually free up more cap space next year if you keep him this year than if you cut him now. I think this is his last year. I don't think they're keeping him and making him a Patriot for life. I think this is probably it. Frankly, the conversation probably comes up again at the deadline because now the contract's a lot less, and maybe a contender as a safety banged up or something, whatever. Maybe Duggar's gone out there and played okay. So I think that conversation comes back. But I don't know. I think for now he might be safe.
It does feel like if they could trade him, they would, but the contract makes that difficult. So then you look at it like, look, he's one of the best 53 guys on this roster. And even if we cut that down and say they're keeping 48, like he's one of the most talented 48 players on this team. And when we talk about these depth issues, like, can they just afford to just cut that player and move off from that player? I don't think they really can right now. So if they can't trade him, I would want to just keep Kyle Duggar around and hope that he continues to get healthier on that ankle and that the mental side continues to click. And then maybe he starts to look more and more comfortable in this defense, and then you can play him. Or if not, you just have an expensive backup to Jabril Peppers and Craig Woodson and Jalen Hawkins in that safety room. And then you can use him when you need him as injury fill-in or just certain packages, and then probably move off from him after this year. So I'm kind of with you. Like, I know it's been tough to predict where that's going to stay and end up with him, but I'm kind of with you that I would probably have him on right now, unless they can trade him, which again, I don't think that's very likely, but we'll see. So I'm with you with Duggar. Elsewhere on the defense, I was very impressed with Marte Mapu last night in that game. Back at linebacker, looks more comfortable at linebacker, covering tight ends. He had a nice pass deflection against a running back, couple plays on the ground, and that's same type of thing. Like, that ceiling with him as a player, the limited linebacker depth. Like, I would find space for Marte Mapu on my 53, especially if Jelani Tavai is getting one of those IR spots there at linebacker.
Yeah, you just need more bodies. And we did this last year with David Andrews. I remember saying, and we talked about this quite a bit, was David Andrews maybe the best, talent-wise, best player on the offense? No. He was the player they could least afford to lose. The way he tied that whole offensive line together, and I think that played out. The offensive line obviously wasn't good all year, but it took a notable step back. Even though Ben Brown did okay on his own, I think the veteran presence, the communication, the offense was not the same without David Andrews. Is Robert Spillane that guy this year on defense? He's not their best defensive player. He might not even be top 3. But you lose Christian Gonzalez, still Carlton Davis. You lose Christian Barmore, he's still Milton Williams. You lose, well, who knows where they're at with Keon White at this point, right? You lose Robert Spillane. The thing about that role, you have to be able to play east to west, sideline to sideline, and you have to be able to fit the run. You look at who they have behind him. Christian Ellis can play sideline to sideline, doesn't really fit the run. He's a passing down player. Jack Gibbons can fit the run, but he's not a sideline to sideline player. He's not an east to west guy. He's north to south. Even if you want to put, Tavai and Mapu in there, Tavai's a downhill run fit player. He's not flowing sideline to sideline. Mapu's the opposite. Mapu's a coverage player. It's kind of like Christian Ellis. So it's so important to have that guy that can cover that much ground and be that instinctive in that middle linebacker position in this defense. And so, again, I don't know that you're going to get somebody that's going to make you feel great if you lose Robert Spillane. I just think he's too important. But if you can just get somebody whose skill set is a little closer, so it's not as jarring if he goes out, I don't know that guy's going to be available, frankly. There's not a ton of linebackers that can do that at any level. Forget it at a high level. At any level that can do that. That's sneaky big need for them in the draft next year. Brian, I'm working on my Patriots pre-draft primer right now. I have 3 linebackers on there. I have more linebackers on there than any other position. Some of that is just, there were a bunch of linebackers that should have come out last year that didn't, that I'm more familiar with. I don't really do tangent here. I'm just curious what you think of this. Usually what my preseason, like, here's the college football players to watch pieces. This is like the 4th year I've done it. Usually, ultimately, what that is simply the guys I liked in the draft last year who didn't declare for the draft. But there were so many true juniors last year that there are, like, all the guys I liked came out. There weren't that many, so I had to kind of learn quick, but there were a bunch of linebackers. The 2 LSU guys, Harold Perkins, Whit Weeks, Kyle Lewis from Pitt. I also wrote about Nick Harbor and that's going to be a thing. Just get ready for that on this show. But the long way of saying, like, linebacker, sneaky big need for them.
Yep. Who's the Bama linebacker this year that's like stepping in for Jahad Campbell? What's his name?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I know it's Harold Perkins and Whit Weeks at LSU, who I really like. Bama's top prospect this year, I think, is Proctor, the tackle, but he's a left tackle. There are 2 right tackles high, which is good.
Well, Dane Brugler did like his way too early top 50, and he had like 12 offensive tackles in his top 50, I think.
And like half of them are right tackles. Are you thinking of Deontay Lawson?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
The bigger one for me, like a guy stepping in for another guy, Dennis Sutton. By the way, I'm going to propose this right now. Dennis Sutton, DDS. I want to call him the dentist.
The dentist.
So it's a good one, right?
That is.
Well, because people at Penn State already call him DDS. He was actually good last year. If you are somebody who goes back and watches the prospects, 33 on Penn State, was opposite Abdul Carter. You definitely saw him, was really good in the Orange Bowl against Notre Dame. He's kind of penciled in as the next one up in that Penn State. Like, he was the secondary guy last year. The expectation is for him to be the guy this year after Carter goes to the league. So
is he switching to 11?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think he's still wearing 33.
All right. So we'll see. So some draft talk. Had to sneak some draft talk in there, of course. But
he's still wearing 33, by the way.
Okay. Still a good edge number, I would say. But the sticks on the Penn State jersey is clean. So but yeah, linebacker. I'm on the Mapu train. I think we've been on the Marte Mapu linebacker train since they drafted him in 2023. And
as long as you don't call it an island, Brian.
Yeah. All right, we'll call this one the train. Chisholm Island stays though. But
have you seen that's become like a big thing with the Catch-22 audience?
No. What side are they on? The correct side or your side?
No, it's very split. It's very evenly split. It's actually excellent.
All right, perfect. Just how we like it. Split down the middle. So Mapu train, we'll roll with that. Like what I saw from him at linebacker. Good flashes even in the first preseason opener against the Commanders, and then he got hurt, which is like the story of Marte Mapu. But if he can stay on the field, interesting development there at linebacker. And of course, special teams value, right? Like, he's been the personal protector at times with the top unit there. So special teams value, keep developing that linebacker. You need the depth. I'm with you there. The other guy you mentioned there on the defense, Keon White, playing into the second quarter on the defensive line. Vrabel said that was because he had to work on some things. You saw him a lot on the edge, pretty much exclusively on the edge. Like, we know we can rush on the interior. Mike Smith, outside linebacker coach, said the biggest thing with Keon is we have to find a home for him. It feels like that's going to be on the edge. And it seemed like in the spring, early in the summer, it was trending really good. Maybe it's kind of slowing down here a little bit because he had a couple pressures, drew a hold, but it was against backups, right? It was all with the power move that we know he can do in the bull rush. You're still trying to see him develop more of a pass rush tool belt there, toolbox. So where are you just kind of at with Keon right now? Like, could he be a trade candidate, or are they just going to continue to work with him, do you think?
Are we being a little overreactionary? That's kind of where I'm at with it. He had a really good start to camp. He might just be in a slump. I don't know. I still believe he's such a perfect fit in this defense. And I think he's somebody that approaches the game the way the coaching staff wants it approached. And nobody was really talking about it. Like, he had a quiet second half of camp in the way that just guys usually, not everybody on the roster is going to be on a complete tear the whole way through. Nobody was talking about this until the usage last night. And look, that's new information, absolutely. And you talk about it. I don't know. If somebody comes along and blows you away with an offer, sure, great. Like, I don't think anybody that was brought in pre-January is outside of Drake May, I think, has the potential to come off the roster. I just think that's how they're maybe, and Christian is also be the other one, right? I think anybody else that's not this coaching staff's guys, there's no loyalty. They are willing and ready to turn this whole thing over. So in that sense, sure. Would they take calls on Keon White? Yes, probably. I don't look at last night and say, oh, his roster status is in danger. They're trying to get rid of him. Who's rushing the passer? Okay, they have Chase on, they have Harold Landry. That's a guy approaching 30 who's had some injury trouble, and a guy that has a career high of 5 sacks in a season, who got hot for a month and a half in camp. And then what? Like, Braden Swinson has not done much. He's had a quiet camp.
Ponder and Truman Jones are the other two.
Unknowns, right? Those guys are unknowns. You got to have some semblance of a pass rush. And I don't love banking on just 2 guys. I don't think you're going to get a Keon White level replacement via trade or on waivers. I don't. So I for a great haul, I'd trade him. I just think it would be kind of quick to, this guy had 2 bad weeks of practice, we got to get rid of him.
Yeah. And it's kind of similar, like the Duggar. He's one of your most talented players. Like one of your
I think it's a little different with Duggar.
45. Just in the fact that, like, we're talking about from the depth perspective, right? Like, if you want to try to build as much depth as possible on this football team, like, Keon White is one of your best 53 players. So they're obviously not going to cut Keon White. Maybe a trade is more likely than Duggar because of the salary and the cap hit and all that. But he's one of your more talented players as a whole. So build that depth, have him in that rotation, and you just hope more snaps, continued work with this coaching staff can kind of get him back on track and make more of an impact along the edge there.
Well, I also just think Duggar is almost 30. He's dealt with injuries. He's kind of like, this might just be it. He might just be done. A lot of players, like, age 29 is the average peak of the professional athlete. Not everybody's the same. Some guys peak at 25. Some guys might peak at 32, 33, 34. The average peak's 29. He's there. And combine that with the injury, this might be it. Keon White's a young guy. What is he, 26, I think?
6, yeah.
26, yeah. Still has multiple years on his rookie contract. Is a player that could be on the rise. This is his age 26 season, by the way. He turned 26 in January. There's more. How much future are you looking at with Kyle Duggar? Even if he gets through the injury, he's still on the wrong side of 30 now. He might get better than what he's been. I don't know that you're going to get the player you got in 2022 and 2023. Like that, he might just be past that. Still might be serviceable, but he might be past that. Keon White's best football should still be ahead of him. So that's the difference to me. Like, there's more to buy into there in the long term with Keon White than there is with Kyle Duggar. I think that's a relatively important distinction.
I'm with you. So those were kind of the big 3 in the game last night. Duggar, Mapu, Keon from back to front there. Some other, just if you're looking at the bubble, were they going to keep 6 corners? None of those guys really planted their flag to make them keep them on the roster, right? Like Miles Battle gave up a touchdown. Jordan Polk had some trouble. Brandon Crossley had some issues. So are you at 5 corners right now? And then, even in addition to Duggar, like, it was a tough game for Marcus Epps in the secondary. So are you at 5 corners? It feels like 5 corners right now. And then, how many safeties maybe are you looking at?
Yeah, I think 5 to start, given Christian has also been banged up this summer. Carlton Davis has an injury history. Marcus Jones has an injury history. 6 would be ideal, or just, a guy on the practice squad you feel you can throw in on a moment's notice. It's another spot where maybe they add in addition, but externally. But I feel like Austin, and I'm just going alphabetically because that's the order I have it written down here. Austin, Davis, Gonzalez, James, DJ James, Marcus Jones. There's a pretty clear cut between that group and then whoever the next guy is, whether it be Minor or Polk or Battle. I thought maybe if one of those guys had a game last night, he enters the conversation. None of them did.
Yep. Yeah, it was a struggle for most of those guys throughout the night. Someone put this one in the chat, and it's back to offense, but I saw some people talking about this on Twitter. And I don't know about replace Josh Dobbs with Tommy Cutlets, but would one of those Giants quarterbacks interest you the way they played last night and adding some quarterback depth if they want a third one?
I mean, I will never say no to Jameis Winston.
Okay, there you go.
But I that's not realistic for a number of reasons. So no, I don't think so.
You're not in on Tommy Cutlets there?
Not really.
All right. I saw some people talking about that, and they cut Ben Woldridge today. So you imagine they will have a third quarterback in some capacity, and those guys kind of tore it up last night against the Patriots. So, all right. Anything else on defense? Any other players you're watching we didn't talk about on the bubble there?
I think that's pretty much it. Well, not on the bubble, but there is one more position battle we have not addressed.
Kicker? Or are you talking defense still?
No,
okay,
kicker.
I was all right.
Oh, sorry. Were you just talking about defense? No, I was kicker.
Let's get into kicker because we were piling up the numbers before we got on here, trying to fact check everything. But with the summer performance and the preseason performance, it does feel, if you just look at usage right now, it feels like it's Andy Borregales' job, right? He had all the attempts last night. He did miss one. Vrabel didn't seem too concerned about the miss, said he swung it well. It just wasn't straight enough. So take that for what it's worth. Another one kind of from distance, 49 yards. So the usage looks like this is Andy Borregales' job. If you run the numbers, though, Parker Romo has a pretty distinct lead, right? I think if you add up every kick he's pretty much taken this summer, he's right at like 90%. Borregales has 10 or 11 extra kicks. He's right at like 82, 83%. So Romo has the lead in the percentage. The usage is Borregales. He's the draft pick. So Barth, where the hell is this kicker battle going to end up?
I mean, you know how I go about this, right? I think they give us the answers, and it's just our job to interpret what they are showing us. They're showing us Andy Borregales is the starter. That's what they're showing us. But, Romo, you bring it up. Romo has much better numbers. He's been the better kicker. Now, there's some context that comes with that. Some of Borregales' kicks have been on bad snaps or bad holds or whatever. Like, the whole operation needs to be cleaner. We know that. I think there's a strong case for it to be Romo. There's a strong case it should be Romo. It looks like it's going to be Borregales. Unless last night was some sort of showcase. Hey, we know we're keeping Romo. We don't need to see him kick anymore. Let's get Borregales out there, see if he can knock some kicks down. Thought it was interesting. Vrabel after the game really didn't critique the miss other than it needs to go in. Maybe it was, let's get him out there and see if we can recoup our 6th-round pick, right? Because there are still kicker needy teams out there. If you're going by the summer performance, I think it's Romo. If you want to factor in, well, this guy was much better in college and he has more upside, he has a bigger leg, like that's where the door opens for Borregales. But if we're just going off of who had the better summer and not factoring any of that other stuff in, which maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't, Romo's been better.
And we have Romo with 4 misses all summer, and 3 of those came in one day, right? So he's been pretty consistent outside of that one day. But again, it does look like the usage, they're trending toward Borregales. But let me ask you this. If we're cutting down to 47, 48 players, are we just keeping 2 kickers? Are we doing 2 kickers potentially?
I just don't think it makes sense with this team. Because what's the end game? Like the end game last time was, all right, Nick Folks looked better than Chad Ryland over the summer. Nick Folk was better than Chad Ryland that summer. But Folk had kind of been fading midway through seasons. He was an older guy, okay. And when they start to make the turn, it gives them time to work with Ryland behind the scenes. And then when Folk falls off, you move on from him, and now Ryland's your kicker. Like that was the idea behind it in theory. I'm not saying that was the idea in the building. That was how it made sense to me. Are you like Romo's young, right? He's not a guy you necessarily expect to fall off the way you expect. And ultimately, Folk was falling off in the second half of seasons, but then came back and was nails and is still in the league, right? Like, is still a good kicker. So
Jets,
maybe that,
right? Jets.
Yeah. So has he been on the Jets like 20 years apart now?
Probably.
But anyway, that dynamic isn't really at play here. So I don't know how you keep 2 unless
I think the dynamic would probably be like you want Borregales to be the kicker because you drafted him. Like, let's just keep 2 and hope Borregales looks good enough in the regular season to start the regular season. Then you can just cut Parker Romo. But if Borregales starts bad like the first month, then you still have Romo as insurance. That's how I would kind of look at it. But
well, the other thing is if you're trying to encourage
Borregales having Romo
like
behind him doesn't
making him that's not going to help. I guess there'd be 2 ways you could justify it now that I think through this a little more. Number one, Maybe no team wants to trade for a kicker right now, but a team's going to want to trade for a kicker at some point. You just, like in a fantasy league, you keep him and stash him until somebody gets desperate because they might have the roster spots to do it. They might have flexibility. The other more realistic one, Borregales has been the better kickoff kicker this summer from what we've seen. Again, we don't know the exact details of it because we don't know the plays they're calling, but Borregales has looked better on the kickoffs. Do you do kind of a college style thing where John Parker Romo is your field goal kicker and Borregales is just here for kickoffs? And before you roll your eyes at that, we've seen in this preseason how important that kickoff play is going to be and how much field position can be swayed on that play. In the past, where everybody was just booming touchbacks, did not make sense to keep a kickoff specific kicker. It didn't. Now where that play has such heightened emphasis, because teams used to do this, it was rare, but like going back to like the 90s, early 2000s, I think there were a handful of teams. Sometimes it would be two punters, not two kickers. You would have your punter and then your kickoff specialist, who was another punter with a big leg. Maybe that comes back now with how important. I don't think they're going to do that. Like my guess would be no. If they were going to do it, that to me would be the logic behind it is Borregales has been better on kickoffs. We're going to put him in that role. We're going to keep working with him on field goals. We're going to ride Parker Romo as long as he's hot. And then eventually we'll have to settle on one guy. But if they were going to do it, and I'm not, 2 years ago, I put the take out. I said it with my whole chest. They could keep two kickers. And I meant it at the time. I think there was a chance. It got to the point where Bill was asked about it. And I was not the one who asked him about it. It was like a real thing. I'm not saying it with my whole chest this year. I'll answer the question that's probably what it would look like if they did. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I still think they're just going to keep one. But it is tight.
And it's going to be Borregales.
That's where I would lean just based off the usage again. But Tony wants lawn snapper talk next. I mean, they haven't brought anyone in to compete against Julian Ashby. So Julian Ashby is the lawn. It hasn't been perfect. There has been some shaky parts of the operation, but they haven't brought in anyone else. So Julian Ashby is the lawn snapper on this.
He was fine last night.
Yeah, definitely better last night. So you hope that continues. But there you go. There's the roster. There's the bubble. Anyone else? Anything we miss?
I think that's it.
No news.
Watch these games. Watch it. You're a Patriots fan and you want to try to sound smart and get ahead. Watch these games tonight. Watch these games tomorrow. There are players who will be on the Patriots 53-man roster this year. I don't know how many of them, but I would bet you there's a couple that are going to be playing tonight and tomorrow, and see if you can find them. I'm stealing Evan's take. Was it Elijah Williams, the guy on the Vikings? The defensive tackle? Yeah, Elijah Williams from Oregon State. I'm stealing Evan's take. That guy's one of them.
That's their guy. They just traded a defensive tackle though, or they traded the veteran
Harrison Phillips. All right, so maybe I need to look. He was on none of their roster projections. So
let me tell you,
up a spot, but
the game to watch tonight: Vikings at Titans. I mean, you have a joint practice team, and then you have Mike Vrabel's old team. Like, what are the odds that someone in that game ends up on this Patriots team?
That is a what time's that game at, Brian? That is a great call. I might make a point to put that on the second screen opposite the Red Sox.
8:00 on CBS. So
is it on CBS or is it on local CBS?
It just says CBS on here.
Hang on, I can tell you. I have a whole big document with all the sporting events in the world and what TV channels they're on.
Of course you do. And then
that game is on. I think that's just on. Oh no, that's on national CBS.
There you go. Brian. Vikings at Titans. Saturday, the Commanders play at noon. So that was a team that was here. And obviously we played the Giants, so they're not playing again. So
you want to know what channel USL League One Soccer Manchester SC versus Portland Hearts of Pine is on?
Sure.
MSG. I was trying to find the most random game on here.
There we go. All right. So there's your Tony saying Friday night I'm going to watch my national games on CBS. Great way to spend your Friday night. Vikings at Titans preseason action. So everyone go tune into that, but we'll wrap up here. We'll be back next week at some point, or they practice Sunday. So we'll be back on Sunday because we should have full access still. So we'll talk about it. We'll talk about any cuts that are made until then. So make sure you guys are locked on Patriots Press Pass like, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications so you do know when we go live. You can also subscribe wherever else you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else you do audio only. So make sure you're also following Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com for his Patriots coverage. He'll have roster updates for you there. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, and head over to patspulpit.com. We'll have roster cuts and all Patriots updates for you guys online there as well. So thanks everyone for jumping in with us tonight. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you guys soon.